Composition is one of the hardest things to master as a new photographer, and that's because you don't have the experience yet to know what looks good or what looks bad. So in this video, I'm gonna give you 3 common composition mistakes that new photographers make and show you how to solve them. So let's go. So the first tip is not leaving enough space inside the frame. And to demonstrate this, I've actually got a friend to help us today. Everyone say hi to Will, because we're gonna use him as our test subject. Let's get you set up over here. So not leaving enough space in the frame means that you have a subject and either you haven't left enough negative space around them, or that there are other competing objects inside of the frame that are distracting you from what you're shooting. Will is in the middle of this path, and we're gonna use the GoPro to capture the behind the scenes and show you what the shooting looks like. So if I'm shooting Will and I want to take a portrait of him, immediately off the bat I notice that there are a bunch of trees that are kind of competing with him, and we've got 2 lines of trees, and in order to make this look better, I'm actually going to get him to move to the right. But here, let's take a shot. Let's take a step this way. I'm gonna line you up with the center. I don't wanna get it too much to the left where, you know, the tree on the left side is maybe coming out of his head and there's too much negative space over here. So I'm gonna frame that up nice and center. Make sure we're centered. Now Will is also taller, so it's something I have to compete with. If I was to back up, I could get all of Will in the shot, and if I got lower, again, I'm leaving space around his head so that he's not competing with the trees on either side. And another thing I want to be worried about, if I shoot it like this, like now I have a competing subject where that gazebo is competing with Will. And so I either want to line him up so that he's blocking it, and that's going to look a little bit better. Again, notice how I'm framing him. I'm framing him so that the shot is cut off in the middle of his torso and the middle of his arms. If I was to drop it a little bit, where it's cutting him off right at the waist, it looks a little bit unnatural. Another thing you'll notice with some of those shots is I'm creating depth. And the way I do that is with the aperture setting on my camera. In my case, I'm shooting at f2.8. So you'll notice that the background is blurry. And I'll show you what the opposite of that looks like, where we have both the background and Will in focus and the 2 subjects start to compete with one another. If I liked this background and I said, you know, Will, stand there, I'm just gonna take your photo. You know, I'm shooting at 35 millimeters here. Boom. The biggest problem is now I have a tree and a pole, and the tree is coming out of his shoulder and the pole is kind of distracting. You know, I could go down like this. You have an afro tree growing out of your head. If we wanted to shoot with this background, I would probably want to create separation. So Will, come towards me. You know, maybe I start thinking about how I frame it up differently on my third. So I'm gonna put Will on the third on the left side of my camera. I don't want to cut him off at a weird position. So for the second set of photos, the framing is slightly different. What you'll notice is I angled it a little bit. I got Will in a different position because maybe the conditions didn't allow me to shoot for these nice line of trees, but you'll notice on the right side, I have these trees that kind of slowly build this perspective off into the distance and then lead to the eye line of my subject. So we were creating those really strong lines, or those leading lines, in our photo. Another example of framing is putting something in your foreground and something in your background. In this case, we've got this baseball diamond chain link fence. So I'm gonna shoot through it and get a picture of Will on the other side of it. So I'm shooting on a 24-70. So I'm actually gonna shoot this pretty wide. Maybe look down a little bit. And then we'll look a little bit more, a little bit straight ahead that way. Can you come a little bit closer off of the fence? I'm just gonna shoot Will through the fence. So I'm creating a foreground and I've got a background. Can you give me arms crossed? I really like the arms crossed. It's the power pose. Actually, do you have your camera? Can you pose with your camera? What I'm gonna do now is introduce a prop. Sometimes if your model or the person you're shooting doesn't know what to do with their hands, or you're not sure what to tell them, introducing an object that they're comfortable with can make the pictures just feel a little bit more natural. Yeah, fiddling with your camera. So it's kind of got like him on one of the thirds, his camera on one of the thirds. Yeah, that's perfect. Just, yeah, angle your camera, drop your right hand down a little bit. Now I can see your camera. And just bring it in a little closer to your body. And then chin up. Okay, so now you can notice as I'm shooting Will, there's a nasty pole in the background coming right out of the top of his head. And we do not want that. So if I actually come out a little bit from the bench, now that pole is gone. I've got Will in a more natural position. Actually, there's a Gatorade bottle. So here's another tip, is to pay attention to your foreground and elements that might be scattered about that will make your photo, or will just take away from your photo. And if it's easier just to grab the garbage or the twigs or the sticks and get rid of them instead of having to Photoshop them out later, that'll save you a ton of time.
And you're saving the planet.
And I'm saving the planet. This is not sponsored by Gatorade. Not sponsored by Powerade. Not. Okay, whatever feels natural for you. Now I'm gonna introduce that extra layer of chain link fence just to create some depth in my photo. Can I get you to move a little bit this way? There's a pole coming out of your head. Can you shift a little bit to your right? And just bring your camera up to your face. That's looking good. Let's see if my camera can focus.
I can take photos of you too.
Okay, I'm gonna actually shoot at an angle. I think that will look good. Right, so now what I'm doing is I have that foreground, which is the chain link fence. I have that background. I'm kind of putting Will's left eye on the thirds, his left hand on the other thirds. And I'm gonna zoom out a little bit just to get a wider option. Again, we wanna remember to leave enough breathing room around our subject so it doesn't look like it's being choked in the frame. Can I get you to move over here? Just because there's a massive pole. I want to get that pole out of it. Just like that, we got lots of greenery in the background now. So I'm gonna fill up my frame with that greenery. I'm just making sure I'm leaving enough focus room. And maybe just bring your camera down from your eye so we've got a natural, yeah, that looks good. You'll notice I'm shooting these at a slightly higher aperture. Yeah, that looks good. Just to make sure I've got all of him in focus because I am shooting him on an angle. And maybe just bring your camera in a natural position just to your chest like this. I'm gonna zoom out a little bit. His eye is on the thirds, that pole is on the thirds. We got the camera. That looks great. Perfect. Another tip is to observe your surroundings for unique photo opportunities. In this case, we have this building and there's a massive wall of glass. So I'm gonna try doing a double exposure, and that's where, no,
that's something else.
I'm gonna be able to take a photo of Will, but then also get him in the reflection for kind of this unique, it's not a double exposure, but it's kind of like I get two Wills for the price of one, if that makes sense. Let's try this.
I'll be leaning against the left?
Yeah, we'll get you to lean. Oh, that looks awesome. Like right off the bat. That looks great on the 85 at 1.8. Can I get you to walk a little bit closer? So I'm gonna place Will on the thirds here. And then his like bonus reflection is just a bonus. A nice shot of Will. Just back up a little bit. Okay, so now I'm shooting landscape. And what you'll notice is I get literally two Wills. And give me one where you're leaning up against the glass. Do this. Oh, there we go. All right, now bonus last shot. Give me something interesting. That's weird. Look at your reflection, your twin brother again. Yeah, YouTube thumbnail. This is gonna be how to clone stamp yourself. That's gonna be Will's YouTube tutorial on how to clone stamp yourself in Photoshop. Coming soon. This is Teletubby Land. We're in Teletubby Land. Did you ever watch that show?
Yeah.
It's a toboggan hill. I guess that makes a lot more sense. The reason they're calling it a toboggan hill is because when they excavated for this building over here, they needed somewhere to put the dirt. And I guarantee you, if this is a LEED accredited building, they probably got bonus points for putting that pile of dirt there rather than having to take all that dirt and truck it somewhere else. Guaranteed 100% that's why that pile of dirt is there. This is the outro. This is what we're using for the outro.